I have the wonderful Ashley on here today to talk all things low tox, but I'll let her introduce herself and share about the topic. Dr. Melissa will be on in a couple minutes for the questions at the end, but feel free to pop in questions where you're from in the chat and we'll get to those after Ashley's great presentation. So take it away, Ashley.
Hi guys. My name's Ashley, as Riley said, and I am a toxin reduction educator. I want to talk to you about what that even means, why it's important, and then changes that you can make that will have a really big impact in your life. So, if you're here with Joy Wellness, I mean, obviously balancing your hormones and paying attention to that is a big deal. And most of the time, the majority of us during our day are disrupting our hormones by products that we're using without even knowing it. So what I want to do is bring awareness to that, not any, but just awareness, and walk you through some of the ways that you can make significant, impactful changes in your life. So first, what I want to talk about is I want to share with you over the next 15 minutes or so information, but it is kind of dense and it is kind of overwhelming. But I do this so that you have good data and good understanding about why it is important. But I just want to kind of start out by saying, if you don't hear me say anything else, I want you to hear me say this, that you do not have to get it perfect. And I think that is, I don't know, it's kind of a theme that we see like with social media and influencers, like everybody's doing it right and they're doing it perfect. And science shows that's number one, not possible, but also that you can have a big impact and have big changes in your health without getting it perfect. So just know at the top, if you don't hear anything else, that you don't have to get it perfect. Okay. Secondly, is you don't have to change everything to have a big impact. And this is backed by multiple studies that I'll share later in the presentation. But there's some really cool facts that I want to share just to kind of set this out. Even if you eliminate two ingredients, the studies focus on these two ingredients, and they're called parabens and phthalates. And they can significantly reduce hormone disrupting chemicals in your blood in 3 days just by removing those two. So it's not like you have to go in and throw out everything that you have. If you check the products that have parabens and phthalates, that has a big impact on your health. Also, removing these two same ingredients, a study at the beginning of 2024 showed that women that remove products with those two actually reverse breast cancer markers. So I just want to set the stage with that so that you understand perfection is not the goal. That is impossible. We don't live in that kind of world. And you'll kill yourself trying. And two, you can change a few things and have a big impact on your health. So I just wanted to start with that. The reason that I bring that up is because there's a lot of data out there just saying make a change, any change. And that's what I want to help you with today. So to start with, I'd love for you guys to drop in the chat if you've heard before that the ingredients in your shampoo or your laundry detergent or your sunscreen could have an impact or disrupt your hormones. Has anybody heard that conversation? I feel like I'll wait and see what you guys say. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of guesses. Yeah. And that's because like I'm really grateful for kind of all the conversations that are happening around this right now, but it also makes it really confusing, right? So we know that it's important, but I don't know if we know how important, right? So I want to acknowledge, like I said, that this really is messy. You know, if you go to one influencer, she's like, this brand is so clean, you can eat it, and then you invest time and money and resources with this product, and then you go to your girlfriend's house and she's like, ew, don't use that, gross, right? And so we're like, wait, what? Like, it's so difficult, it's so messy, and then you quit because you're like, wait, I just spent time and I just spent money. How do I even know, right? So I just want to really acknowledge that we all kind of feel this way, and that's exactly why I do what I do, right? My whole purpose and passion is around making sure that you do not get overwhelmed, or at least if you do, you can come back to the basics of what's important, because it is so important to your current health and your future health, and I really do not want you to quit. That is like my number one goal. So, for the purpose of this discussion, I'm going to be speaking in, like I said, this is a pretty dense conversation and it can go kind of everywhere. So, for the purpose of this discussion, I'm going to be talking in really general terms about common adult exposures to EDCs, which are endocrine disrupting compounds or hormone disrupting compounds. If you want more guidance, like if you get to the end of this and you want more guidance around your specific exposures, what you're using in your house, we can talk about that. I have services for that, and I'm always happy to chat about it, like I said, because it's so important. But I just wanted you to know that this is not everything. This is kind of like the most common things that I see adults are exposed to that disrupt their hormones. So I want to start with a stat that stopped me in my tracks the first time that I heard it. Let me know if you guys have heard this before. My slides, I think, are a little behind me speaking, but only 5 to 10% of all cancers are genetic. The rest are environmental. Anybody else know that? That means the rest of them, the 90 to 95%, are largely due to environmental factors. Isn't that funny? Because when someone that we know, which sadly is more and younger currently, the first thing we say is, did it run in their family? Does anybody else in their family have cancer, right? And sadly, that's really kind of an irrelevant question because very few people that develop cancer is because of their family. So if 90 to 95% of all cancers are environmental, what does environmental mean? Yes, it technically does mean what's in our food, our air, and our water. But so much of what contributes to the pollution of our food, air, and water are what I like to call out there exposures. And although I personally am a huge advocate for policy reform around those things, on a day-to-day basis, there's really not much that we can do about out there exposures. So I, especially in this discussion, but when you're really trying to like take these steps, I don't want you worrying about the out there exposures. Okay. What we have a lot of power over are to, we have a lot of power to ensure that what we bring into our home are in here exposures are not taken from our health. So that is where my sweet spot is. It's not the out there exposures, which are very, like I said, very important to me, but there are in here day to day controllable exposures. Okay. So I just wanted to set the stage for that. So we're all on the same page about what we're talking about and what we control. So the reason I want as many people to understand what they're exposed to day to day is because years, like I'm talking decades and decades and decades of science and studies have shown us that ingredients and the majority of our daily products are directly correlated and connected to hormone issues. I hate to read this list because, as we know here, hormones are really in charge of everything, but infertility in adolescence, early onset period, early menopause, PCOS, uterine fibroids, hormonally driven cancers, and more. These EDCs are connected to metabolic issues, including insulin resistance, weight gain, obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, neurological conditions like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, cancers, immune system issues, behavioral problems, and even things simple like brain fog and anxiety, depression, allergies, and asthma. That should not have been little things. The depression part, that should have been bigger, but and so much more. But I just wanted to show you how we have, like I said, decades and decades of science and studies that show that these hormone disrupting chemicals are connected and often directly correlated to all of these things. So it's really, really important. All right, I want to back up a little bit about how I even became so passionate about this. So I am a paralegal by education and about 15 years of experience. So I like to say that I'm so emotional. I'm sorry. Okay, probably because she's so cute. Um,
So cute. It's
I
a
like to say that my superpower, thanks, Riley, is research and writing, which is not a lot of people's fun spot, but that's like really, really fun for me. Which is why I've been so good at being a paralegal, but it also finding good information is literally the only thing that matters, right? I don't get to present information as, as a paralegal that could be proved wrong. Like that's not like I would not keep my job, right? Like I have to find information with good data that has a lot of, like meat to it. That's my superpower. So, and then translating it into regular English, right? Like how many people have heard, they're speaking legalese, and that's just because it really is a foreign language. So my sweet spot is researching, writing, and turning it into English so that you can understand what the data means. So, like many of you, I'm sure, when I really started looking I really started caring and looking about what I was using and putting on my body and what was in my house when I came pregnant. I've always lived a really healthy lifestyle. Like I grew up in the 80s and I think lived pretty unconventionally for that time. Like we didn't have any processed foods. When I talk to my husband, he's like, we only had the Swan Man. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like we did not have processed foods. My mom made every meal. I was a dancer and a gymnast. And then as I got older, I was in track and cross country. So the concept of fueling my body and really moving was something that just came, there was no learning curve for me on that. That came really naturally. That's just the way I grew up. But when I became pregnant, someone had said to me that the ingredients that I was using in my sunscreen were going into my bloodstream. And I was like, okay, but like my bloodstream's making a human, like what is in this sunscreen? And so what I found out really terrified me. And because this space is messy and continues to be messy, I spoke to my physician, and this was almost 10 years ago. And she was basically like, that's not a real concern. Don't worry about it. And so that forced me into my sweet spot, right? That research, that writing, that finding good data. But it was really, really overwhelming. And so I started sharing what I was learning with others. And since then, I've taken many courses and lectures and lessons on environmental impacts. And I want to make sure that with all this data that I know, I can make this area so much simpler for you than it was for me. Okay, so I don't know about you, but I always thought before this, I always thought that if I walked into Target, I could probably find like better quality ingredients. I could spend more money, but they had to be safe. If I could buy them, they had to be safe, right? And unfortunately, this is so far from true. And this is part of what makes it, so messy. So I want to share a few things with you. Here in the US, our beauty and personal care products are severely underregulated, which I feel this is a very common topic now. People kind of have an understanding about this. But the reason is because here in the US, the way our system works is that a product is assumed safe until enough damage has been done, and then they'll look at it. Versus other countries, you can't put it on the market until most other countries, right? You cannot put it on the market until it's been proven safe. So there was new legislation last year, the MOCRA Act, but we really haven't seen real enforcement or change in this area, and it's been almost a whole year. And honestly, here in 2025, especially, we continue to see more safety regulations rolled back than put into place. So we are far behind 40 other nations who have taken steps to protect their consumers. So to date, like I was saying, we have this kind of opposite approach that we assume that things are safe until enough harm is done. But our FDA has only banned or restricted 33 ingredients for use in personal care products. Some of these date back to 1938. So if you want to think about how much more we know and data and how many more chemicals are out, right? 1938 was a long time ago. In contrast, Canada has banned or restricted about 600 ingredients, and European Union, who is not a gold standard, by the way. I like to really share this because a lot of people are like, well, if the EU does it, it has to be safe. I just had to give that little caveat that the EU is not a gold standard. They're just better than us because we have a very low bar. The EU has ingredients. So we are just really, really far behind, which means we need to understand what we're using. So is this really a big deal, right? Like wouldn't our government protect us if this was a really big deal? In the United States, there are more than 86,000 chemicals that are registered for use in commerce, right? Here we go. Are you ready? 80% of those were never tested for safety before being put on the market. So, and like I shared, our system works backwards, but we know from what no, 80% were not tested for safety. So that like, and even the way that our current system works, even if it's found to be unsafe, so let's say like, people are getting blind from mascara, which has literally happened. Our government does not make them pull it from the shelves. So not only do they not ensure that it's safe before being put on the market, even when found unsafe and that it's caused damage, the companies are not required to pull from the shelves. It's up to the company's discretion. If you want to think about, like, for example, Johnson and Johnson talc in their baby powder, that took a very long time for that to get pulled from the shelves, and that was only because consumers threw a fit, right? That wasn't because the company was doing a good thing. So that means that it is up to our discretion. Okay, how are we coming in contact with these unregulated chemicals? So outside of in utero, which is a completely different class, there are three major ways that we are exposed to these toxins, these EDCs, through ingestion, through inhalation, and through skin absorption. So what I'm going to focus on today, or what I have found in my practice, are the most common daily exposures and the simplest to change. That's what I love. They're the most common and they are the simplest, right? But you have to have this information. And that is what we put on our body through skin absorption. So the reason I like to start with highlighting our exposures through our skin is because of the number of ingredients in each product and how often we are exposed to them. So I additionally just want to, sometimes people are like, is it really, our skin is a barrier. Like, is it really getting through? And if you want to think about, as an illustration, there's many medications that are in patch form, right? Or lotion form. And that's because our skin is such a good conductor into our bloodstream, right? So I, nearly 20 years ago, which I think this is, really kind of mind blowing too, because this was 20 years ago. And like, we're just now, this is a common conversation, but the EWG, which is the Environmental Working Group, they conducted a survey and found that the average woman used 12 products a day that contained over 168 unique ingredients. So I don't know about you, but I use more products than my mom used 20 years ago. I think that there's just like more options, more accessibility. And also, I know for a fact my daughters, both of them, the 9-year-old and the 6-year-old, their little skincare routine is much, I didn't even think about it at this age, right? So we have more products available. We're exposed to them at a younger age, which is a big factor too. So I actually think, in my personal opinion, that this 160 ingredients is actually lower than currently accurate. While everyone's routine differs, if you want to think about your morning routine, if you turn over the back of your like daily moisturizer and you look at all those ingredients, right? You are exposed to every one of those things every single day, even before you leave the bathroom, right? So we're not even talking about what you do in the rest of the day, just every single morning. Does every ingredient, or is everyone dangerous? Absolutely not. Do they have potential to be dangerous when interacting together? Absolutely. Right? So we need to just be aware, even though they're not all dangerous. Of course they're not. That's a lot, right? That's a lot of exposures. And there really is not a lot of data, or studies done around how all these products interact together. Most of the data and research is done one ingredient at a time, which I also find very unhelpful. Okay. So I want to introduce you. This term is, ooh, that water has never played before. You guys,
That was
this is fun.
great.
Never
Interaction.
played before. Okay, so this term, I don't know, has anybody heard the term body burden? I'll give a second in the chat. So the term body burden is something that I like to think about a lot in this kind of conversation, because it directly relates to what is going on in our in here environment that I talked about before, right? Body burden, if you Google it, it defines the total amount of chemicals and pollutants that are present in your body at any given time. Our body is meant to naturally detox, but it is not meant to move out the amount of chemicals, that we are, exposed to at this pace. I like to think about, and this is so fun that now I'll quit, but I like to think about when I talk about body burden to help kind of illustrate that is like a bathtub, right? You have to be able to turn the water off so the tub doesn't overflow. Yes, there is an overflow spot under the faucet, right? And that's when people are like, "Can't you detox?" Yes, there are ways that our body does that. That is what is it intended to do. Yes, you can pull the plug and you can drain it. But if you're filling up the bathtub too fast, right? Or you're splashing around, maybe not you, but your child, splashing around, disrupting the water, it's going to overflow. It's going to go everywhere. And that's what we're doing to our body. We're coming into contact in our environment, the things that we can control, the things that are outside of our environment, the things that we can't control, and our body overflows, right? Actually, in this, the overflow is really what is at the start of a lot of disease. When our body just cannot handle that toxic load anymore. And your body is just like, I'm drowning here, like, help me out. So a lot of people ask me that. So this conversation happens a lot. Can't we just detox? So let's talk about this for a minute. Our bodies are detoxifying 24/7 through our primary organs of detoxification, like our lungs, our liver, our digestive system. That's what it's meant to do, right? And they are excellent at helping metabolize many toxic chemicals. But we need to be aware of a few things when we're talking about detox. Number one, these detox systems, are not usually often functioning at 100% all the time. For example, according to the American Liver Foundation, more than 100 million people in the US have some form of liver disease that compromise their liver function, right? So a lot of us are not, we're not detoxing we're not functioning at our highest ability. Number two, when our bodies are paying attention to trying to push out these constant exposures that we inundate them with daily, it can't pay attention to other things at the same time. And this is something I think that's really helpful to think about too, right? Our body was never intended to push out all of these exposures, like in our water, in our cleaning product, in our makeup, right? Let alone at these levels, right? Like it wasn't made for this. We weren't supposed to come in contact with all of this. And then let's say your body comes in contact with influenza. How is it adequately supposed to fight off influenza when it is trying to move all of these toxins out of your system, right? So a lot of times moving the chemicals out, these hormone disrupting chemicals, is often comes secondary. And lastly, number three, kind of as I've already touched on, our body just cannot keep up with detoxing and the amount of things we're putting into it consistently. We never give it a break. So the bathtub can never drain enough. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so the best way to reduce the disruption of our hormones, prevent disease, hit our health goals, and get the most bang for our buck with all the supplements and peptides and therapies that we're using, right, is to stop contributing to the overflow. So how do we do this? Number one, we're going to turn down the volume on our toxic exposures. We do this by reducing exposures in as many places as possible. I will talk about that very specifically, so don't worry. This is, like I was talking about, the turning off of the water in the bathtub metaphor, right? I think we spend a lot of time making sure that we're eating right. And we have our supplements and we're sleeping enough. We spend a lot of time and focus on those things. But if we are not turning off the water, if we are not slowing down our exposures, what are we even doing? We're never getting ahead. So the goal, like I said, the goal isn't perfection. It's not zero exposures. It is how can we lower them? And that is going to be our goal. Number two is to focus on turning up our body's innate ability to metabolize and detoxify. So that means supporting our organs of detoxification, making sure you're pooping and that you're eating nutrient-dense foods, stay properly hydrated, sweat, sleep, right? And if you're working with Joy Wellness, I think speaking with your coach or your physician about how best to support your detoxification would be really beneficial. Every system in your body works better and more efficiently when it is not exhausted from pushing out constant hormone disrupting chemicals. So the good news is here, there is some. is that some of the toxins we are exposed to are non-persistent, which means they do not build up in our body. Not all of them, some of them do, but many of them are non-persistent, which means they don't build up in the body. And so by avoiding those exposures, we can lower the amount in our body very quickly. And that has a big impact. So I touched on this study in the very beginning, but this research published early 2024 found that women who were able to reduce breast cancer markers in just 28 days. That is crazy. In less than a month, by avoiding phthalates and parabens and their personal care products. So they weren't even talking about in every area of their life. When they removed only those two ingredients, that was the only thing that they changed for less than a month. They reduced and actually reversed breast cancer markers, which is crazy to me. I don't know if that's crazy to you, but I had to reread it like 12 times because I was like, that can't be real, right? The authors of this study even stated that avoiding personal care products with those ingredients could be a biologically plausible breast cancer prevention strategy. I am not a physician. I'm not making any sort of claims about that, but this study and the authors of it shared that. Okay, so where do we come in contact with phthalates and parabens? The reason that I list first this ingredient to avoid is because it is found in nearly every single category of product. Personal care products, which is personal care products, home fragrances, candles, shampoo, household cleaners, etc. Which is why when I'm sharing where to start changing products, eliminating fragrance or parfum on the label is it. This doesn't mean, there's a very common misconception that means we're choosing unscented products. That's not it, okay? If you turn over your label and you look on the back, we want to make sure that it is not listing fragrance as an ingredient. And that is because there are over 3,000 chemicals that can fall under this fragrance umbrella. So fragrance isn't actually an ingredient. It's like an umbrella term. And companies can put 3,000 different ingredients under that label and never disclose what are in them. A lot of times brands will say on the back, like all natural fragrance, but we cannot assume that because something is natural, it's inherently safe. If you think of it, lead, so are natural and highly toxic, right? So even if a company says natural fragrance, we cannot assume that means safe fragrance. Currently, the way that our system works, there are no fragrance compounds under that label that are required to be disclosed. So because of this, I personally spend a lot of my time speaking to companies and asking them for their full fragrance list. There are a few caveats to this, but to make your life simple, if you're going to turn over your label on any of the products that you're using, if it says fragrance, you're going to just want to get rid of it. And the reason is because phthalates have been measured in over 95% of the population and are one of the most studied chemicals in commerce, in part because of how common they are. And we have decades of research showing that nearly all phthalates are hormone disrupting. This is one of the major chemicals that we find, compounds that we find under the fragrance label. So exposures to phthalates are linked to early onset puberty in girls, breast cancer, male genital birth defects, metabolic issues, endometriosis, allergies, asthma, delayed neurodevelopment, social impairment, decreased testosterone in women and men, menopausal symptoms like hot flashes, and more. So although phthalates will not be present on an ingredient list, and you won't actually know for sure if they're there because of the labeling requirement or lack thereof, one of the simplest ways to avoid them is just to choose products that do not list fragrance as an ingredient. Okay, so next up are parabens. So these are much easier to spot on a label. It will literally just say blank paraben, like paraben, methyl paraben, like it will say paraben at the end, okay? So they're very easy. Raise your hand if you've heard of this ingredient or you've seen it, spotted on a label. They are widely used in personal care products. They're in everything. In fact, I was trying to get my daughter an antihistamine last week, and there were parabens in that antihistamine, like a liquid form. I was like, okay, this is not working for me. But they are widely used. They're like one of the top ingredients that are used. In fact, 75 to 90% of personal care products contain them. And like phthalates, they are well established endocrine disruptors. Since they are found in most of our personal care products, we're getting multiple exposures throughout the day. Um, I think, if you're here, that our hormone system is designed to respond at very, very low levels of hormonal changes. So we can see why this is such a focus of research. Parabens have been measurable in semen, menstrual blood, breast tissue, umbilical cord blood, breast milk, and urine. In fact, 100% of samples from pregnant women in the US have contained parabens, which clearly researchers find alarming because that means you're not just exposed, your child is exposed as well. Paraben exposure. Sorry, guys, I feel like I'm just reading a lot of health effects. You can read these to see what they're linked to, but one of them that I find really was really like, whoa, that's crazy, is it blocks the efficacy of a specific breast cancer drug. So we know that removing them helps, like from that study, right? That study showed that removing parabens reduced breast cancer markers, but also not using them makes your cancer drugs more effective, according to these studies, which I think is crazy. Okay, so how do we avoid these ingredients? We are going to remove our daily, I feel like this is kind of just like, I'm just repeating what I've been saying, but one of the very easiest ways is to remove daily personal care products that contain parabens or share fragrance on the back. Like I said, this is like very high level, but if you are going to start anywhere, this is where you are going to start. Think about your skincare routine, your body soap, your lip oils, right? Whatever you're using daily, you want to look for these two ingredients, find different products for that. I also want to share that changing your laundry detergent is a really big one. Number one, because of the ingredients, like the ingredients are generally pretty gross, but also we're getting a double exposure, right? When I talked about how we're exposed to these, we're getting laundry detergent through an inhalation exposure, and we're also getting it through an absorption exposure. So we're getting double duty. So it's a really easy thing to change. There's a lot of great options for that. And another thing that's free is just open your windows and air purifier. This is not what we're putting on our skin, but the things that we have put in our environment, whether those are candles or cleaning products or our perfume, right? We're by just opening your windows, it's allowing, those things to get out. So we're not exposed to them doubly, right? Inhalation and through absorption. So, okay. I almost didn't include this part, but I think it's important to talk about because, like I said, this space is really messy. And it's really messy intentionally. And that is because brands are starting to know that we really do care about finding safe products. We want clean products. And because of that, they see dollar signs, right? It's really difficult to know what is safe and what is not. And that is because of this marketing term called greenwashing. We're doing the best that we can. So please don't feel like you're doing anything wrong or there should be things that you should have known before this, right? Companies are not making it easy for us. Like I said, they know that we're looking for it. And they use words in their marketing like natural, plant-based, safe. And there are absolutely no guidelines or restrictions about what they can say. So they're doing whatever they want, and it doesn't have to be true in the least. This is so common that 72% of CEOs or other company leaders admitted that their companies were knowingly guilty of greenwashing. So it's everywhere. It's not your fault. They're trying really hard. Yeah. So to illustrate this, these are not personal care items, but these are really common brands that are greenwash. They are brands that use these marketing terms that I talked about being clean, and they aren't. In fact, both of them use fragrance on their label. There's many other ingredients, but fragrance is one of them. Okay, so how do we look? There are, right? So like I said in the beginning, we're not looking for perfect. So maybe for you, clean perfection is not the goal. Maybe we start with finding brands without parabens or phthalates. However, if you do want to find clean brands that are avoiding any potential harmful ingredients, I do have a list of my favorite clean brands on my website, which is ashleyasberry.com. And you guys, everybody here on this webinar will also be getting a starter guide from me. Riley's going to send that out to you guys for how to remove toxins, links to some of my favorite brands. Like I said, you can go on my website and it's under the approved list. Or if you have, if you want me to work with you more one-on-one to look at what you're using, and even if you need to test it out, just shoot me a message after this. You guys can find me on Instagram, and we can tell exactly even necessary to change. So the biggest thing is I really don't want you guys to get overwhelmed and quit. That's the reason that I do this. That's the reason I'm so passionate about it, is because it's so important. It's so important. So thanks for letting me be here. I don't know. I'll let Riley look at questions and see if there's anything that I can answer right away, but do know that guide is coming to you.
Yeah, there was a ton of questions coming. I'm gonna start at the top of the chat. I saw the first one. I'm
Okay.
actually curious about this. I just spent a lot on caraway cookware and pots and pans. I really hope they
Yeah.
are safe.
Okay. I feel like cookware is not easy because there are a lot of safer options, and caraway is one of those safer options. Hold on, I'm going to write this down so I remember to send this to Riley too. But caraway is a safer option, right? Technically, there's no such thing as safe nonstick, which is very depressing, and a lot of people have had it. Nobody wants me to say that. But caraway is much safer. It's a much better brand. You're fine. You do not have to go out and change it. I will say they're probably not going to last very long. So you're probably going to have to change in the next couple years anyway. And when you do that, I have a lot of options. I have a free cookware class that you guys can take, and I'll send that to you, Riley. You guys can take the class so you can learn a little bit more about it, but it also comes with like a list of my favorite brands that are affordable, nonstick. Nope, not nonstick. I would never send that to you. That are affordable and they're not harmful. So
That was a great answer. Also, I was so interested in that. I think you answered this, Ashley, but I'll just re-ask it. Later after the call, can you provide a list of home products that are safe, recommended products as far as cleaners, hair products, dishes, cookware?
Yeah. So, like I said, if you go to my website, there is an approved list, and those are like my top ones that you can go to their brand and buy anything from their brand. So that is a really good like starter way. It's definitely not all inclusive. There are many, many more. And like I said, if you guys want to talk to me about that one-on-one, I have like many available services to do so. But hopefully that gets you started. And also when you get the starter guide, they'll be in there as well.
Nice, solid. Thanks, Ashley. I think this might
Mm-hmm.
be for Dr. Melissa. We'll see. Can medical professionals test for body burden?
Yeah, yes and no. It's not as clear cut as hey, let me just do a blood draw and see what your load is from a paraben standpoint. It usually we end up looking at it more detail on liver markers, oat testing. It's much more detailed than just a simple blood draw and just a simple hormone test.
Nice. Okay. Cool.
Sadly, yeah, right. Wouldn't that be nice?
I mean, I heard Ashley too say there's simple things like I'm going to just say it outright. If you're not pooping every day, you probably are having some toxic burden happening. Yes, cortisol is on there too, but like we're meant to poop every day. So if you don't poop every day, there's something going on.
Whoa. Well, follow up to that. How do you start dealing with that and cope with not going to the bathroom properly?
Well, so for me personally, you have to also look at what's your dietary intake look like? How much hydration do you have? What's your cortisol levels look like? And if all of that's fairly dialed in and you're not seeing any reasons there from that standpoint, nutrition will matter greatly, what you're putting in your body. I mean, if you're If you're not eating whole foods, getting quality protein, you're creating some toxic burden in your body. I mean, think of fast food. What's everything wrapped in? Coated plastic, or it's coming in styrofoam. There's so much everywhere where it's the how do I be conscious as best as I can.
Wow, good to know. Do you also have lists for foods to avoid or support PCOS and regulating hormones? We are especially trying to reduce testosterone for my daughter.
I do not get into food because I think food is really it really needs to be specific to the person. Like everybody's needs are so different, what things they're already doing. And so I don't touch food at all. I'm not my area because I really do think it's so number one, not everybody has access to different options. So I try not to touch that. But also it really is so individualized for each person. So I always refer to a specialist like Dr. Melissa to talk about anything like that.
And I'll take that one just super briefly here. So there's this misconception that PCS is just, and I hate the word just, but it's just an elevation of testosterone levels or cysts on the ovary. You can have a PCOS gal who is insulin resistant and one who isn't. You can have one who needs her PCOS is dominated by needing progesterone support. So yes, there are things dietary wise that can help support PCOS, but to Ashley's point, they have to be very individualized to determine what's driving your PCOS symptoms.
And I'd also just real quick, I think this is one of the things too that makes this space so messy is because there you've probably seen multiple influencers say things like eat this to lower, if you have PCOS, like everybody should eat this or everybody should be taking this supplement. And it's so misleading. So I think that's like a big red flag. If you see anybody say anything other than what we just said, it's probably marketing because it's really individualized. That's my personal.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. This might not be a question, but maybe I've heard diet can depend on blood type. That sounds like a Dr. Melissa question.
That sounds like a new one to me. That's one I have not heard before.
Good answer. Oh man. Okay. I'm trying to see. We hit some other type form ones. How bad are our products, hair deodorant, laundry detergent? You kind of went over this. Really, and are the clean products really clean? How do you know what actually is low tox / what to look for in labels? Which you definitely.
Yeah, that's really hard. Yes, they are honestly hair care, skin care, are probably like makeup, like beauty and hair care are probably the two worst. They're like I don't even want to say like I don't say really bad very much, right? Because it's really a scale. It kind of depends on what else you're doing. But they're pretty harmful. And like I kind of touched at the beginning, because of how many different ingredients there are and how often we are using them, they really have a big impact. So that's why I focused on that in this particular webinar, is because they are the biggest place I think for people to start. How do you know if they're clean? This is definitely not across the board, because there are many other ingredients to look at. But if you look at the back of anything and it says fragrance or it has some sort of paraben, you don't have to worry about what's on the rest of it because you already know it's not clean. So it's a really easy way to look at a label. There are probably other ingredients too. If they're using some, they're probably using more. But that's why I like to start with those to watch for, because you don't have to know every ingredient. You don't have to know, you just have to keep those two in your mind. And if you see either one, you know that it's not going to be clean. So yeah.
Ashley, do you utilize some of the apps like Think Dirty and etc.? Like I have mixed feelings on them.
Yeah, me too. Which is why I do too. Okay, so we'll start with Think Dirty. Is that's not the EWG app, right? Or is that the EWG app?
No, that's not. I don't think so. I know my big thing I hate about Think Dirty is people can put their own. You can add products as a consumer.
Yeah, I was trying to like picture the label before I started speaking. So think dirty. Also they're really behind. So like labels, which is one of
Yes.
the things that really makes it overwhelming, which is why I really try to like keep people updated. And like if you're, you're working with me, I can tell you as soon as possible. But brands change labels a lot, like ingredients in their products a lot, like formulations. And so think dirty is really behind. I don't think it's worth using at all. I think it probably causes more confusion than not.
Confusion. Yeah.
There is a free app called Clearia, CLER. And also in my guide, I have these apps linked in there. So just know like you'll be getting those. I think that's a great app, but it's not quite as user friendly. My very favorite app is actually Switch Natural. And like I said, I have, there's a link to it in my guide. And that one you do have to pay for, but it's a one-time fee. And what you do is you either take a picture of a label or like if you're online, you can screenshot it and it will review. And that is the closest one that I have found. And that does as accurately. It's not perfect, and that's the thing. It's just not perfect. There's nothing perfect. But it's as close that I have personally found. A lot of people use EWG as a resource, and I really respect the EWG. I respect that the work that they do. I find having their rating scale a little confusing and misleading in a way because like it might say like it's a 4, right? Let's just say they say it's a 4, and so most people are like that's pretty clean. Like 4 is pretty good. Like I'll buy that. But if you look in it, it's because it's like an average of ingredients. So you might have an ingredient that's like an 8, and then the rest of them are 2s or 3s, and so they're giving you that average. And to me, if there's an 8, if you guys are not familiar with this app, 0 is like, or 1 or 0 is the cleanest, and 10 is like the most dangerous. So to me, if there's an 8 in there, that's not clean. It doesn't matter if it's averaged out by other clean ingredients. So I respect their work. I like their work. I think the app is a little confusing. So that's my long-winded answer to that.
Well, good to know. Okay, we have 2 more. Besides parabens, what are some no-nos with respect to skincare, lotions, moisturizers? Question mark.
There's
A whole
a
other
lot.
hour.
Yeah, it really is. There's a lot. If you go to my Instagram, one of my pinned posts talks, it has like my top ingredients to avoid. And there's a list of like 10 of them or so. So you can go over there and just like look at that, save it, screenshot it or whatever. It would be easier than me saying them and you taking notes for them. So it's pinned. It's like the second or third post on my Instagram.
I'll link your Instagram too so they can see it. Last question.
I hate to say it, but ladies, there is very few out there that is safe for us from makeup, skincare. Like I think I probably have maybe 2 skincare brands that I like. There aren't, it's tough. It's super tough for us.
It is tough. It's really, really tough, which is why like I don't want you to get overwhelmed. I just want you to know what you're looking at, but just honestly probably assume it's
not good.
Yeah. And then what is all of the girls starting younger and younger, like these exposures are starting younger and younger with skincare. Like it's a huge thing, for preteens or even younger to be doing full skincare routines. And so that's something like if you have that in your household, if you have younger daughters in your household or anyone, that's using, I know boys like use, a lot of like cologne or body, you need to really keep an eye on that.
Well, and you can go deep. Like there's the conversations of you should be using bar soap because it comes in cardboard versus body washes, which come in plastic and the plastics can seep through into that. Like if you dive down to this, you can dive really deep.
Yeah, which is and to me, plastics is a big one, especially for things in your bathroom because your bathroom does get hot. But that, like I said, like we could talk for 7 hours about exposures, and I don't want people to quit. I want you to know that better is best when you're just starting. I'm here to help you.
Awesome.
You've got that guide. Yeah, like just get moving, because once you get moving, you're learning a different language right now, right? And once you get started and you kind of get into these like other products, it'll be much easier to make better choices. You just got to get started. So, yeah.
Yeah. But to Ashley's point, if you're a mom and you've got young girls and even the boys,
Yeah.
be conscious of it, because especially females though, but as females, I think it's 75%. Like our
Yeah.
toxic burden is 75% higher than guys because of makeup and skincare alone.
Like the amount of products,
Mm-hmm.
the
Yep.
amount that we're using. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. So I saw a couple, is this next the tallow conversation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Tallow's big. So I saw a couple of those come up while Dr. Melissa was talking. I'm not anti-tallow. I want to start with that. I always get a little, just personally, a little red flagged when I just like start paying, and by red flag doesn't necessarily mean bad, just like really start paying attention when things get really trendy, because I'm like, why are they getting
Right.
really trendy? Why is everybody talking about this, right? So tallow in itself is not bad. Obviously, what is good for your skin is very personalized too. So that's gonna, I can't say what's best for your skin. I don't know you. I'm not a dermatologist. We haven't talked about any of the things, right? Generally, tallow is fine. Something I really want you to be aware of though is that, I mean, tallow is beef fat, right? Um, Pesticides hide in fat. So and other chemicals, things that they drink in water, a lot of toxins are fat soluble and hide in fat. Like your body retains them. They do not, like I was talking about non-persistent. Some of these things like parabens are non-persistent. A lot of the things that cows are exposed to water, air, food, are persistent. So I don't recommend it because I have no idea where you're getting it from. I think it would be very, very difficult to know where someone's getting it from. Even if they say they're all organic, they're grass, like what kind of water are they drinking? I don't know. I don't know. I just, because of, you're fine. If you have it, you're fine. I don't personally recommend it because of those reasons that I just shared. I think it's potentially dangerous. And so I don't recommend it. Are essential oils safe in them? I saw that come up. These go together. Essential, that's not cut and dry. That's kind of a whole nother class in itself. Some essential oils are very low risk. Some are very high risk. Some are high risk if they come in exposure with sun. Some are high risk if they're exposed together with other ones. So that's not cut and dry. Also, they are one of the most I don't know a better word for this, but like tainted products on the market. Like they are cut, they have fillers. I don't know where you're getting them from, and I don't know where these people are getting them from. So when I personally, which is why I do like a lot of this work for you, so you don't have to do all this because I do not want you to get overwhelmed and quit. I talk to the companies that who's sourcing these for you. I do research on who's sourcing their essential oils because it's very, very important. So I don't know. A lot of people are getting tallow from, like their local like farm or and I don't know where they're sourcing their ingredients. I tend to personally trust companies that I know are like do a really like have a very high level of testing, post product testing, pre product testing for these sort of like fillers or contaminants. And that's how I trust products that have essential oils in them, or what essential oils I use. That's how I kind of go about it because if a company, if a brand is selling you tallow with essential oils and they're not tested for contaminants after, I don't know. Like I don't know how you would know about essential oils. So
Nice. Great answers. Okay, thanks, Dr. Melissa, for hopping on. We'll take one more question just because we have 6 minutes left. But what companies' brands are testing for fillers and contaminants? That's probably a hard one to answer, but
it is. Crunchy, which is on here. And I would love if you guys are interested in looking at that, I would love to give you a link for that because I have a discount link if you want to try it. But they have the most stringent testing that I've seen with the best results because I look at every company's who tests, are they testing themselves or are they third parties? What do those test results look like? And they have their standard of testing is far beyond anyone that I've seen, and their brands, all their products come back like significantly just cleaner and better. Like it's just immaculate. So that's my personal favorite brand because, like I said, there's no like compromising for me in that. However, there are a lot of other brands that are better. Like if you want to do a better versus best option, like there are other brands and we can talk about that. But yeah, does that help?
Nice. Oh my gosh, this whole presentation was so helpful. Thank
Good.
you
I'm so
on
glad.
behalf of Joy. I can't wait to read your guide, which everyone on here and anyone who signed up for this webinar, we're going to send a follow-up email next week with her guide, everything about her. I suggest following her on Instagram. I put it in the Zoom chat. She posts the best stuff ever, and you do make it so approachable, by the way. Like I loved how you
Thank you.
shared it and it's not scary. It's just trying your best. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Ashley. Thank you everyone for joining. Have a wonderful weekend and stay tuned for our next ones. We have one usually twice a month. So
Thanks. It was great to be on here. I'll talk to you guys soon. I can't wait to connect.
thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.